if that works for everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So glad you're here today. I think we're going to have a great conversation today. Our session is entitled What the Best Collin Professors Do, a conversation with outstanding professor award finalists. I am Dr. Allison Boyer, Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I am so thrilled to have such a wonderful panel of brilliant, esteemed professors with us today to share some of their expertise and insights with us. So my plan for the next hour is we have some points for discussion that our panelists will weigh in on, and they're going to share some of their secrets from the classroom with all of us today. And then we will have some time at the end for an open Q&A with the panelists if you have any questions for them. If you have questions along the way during our discussion, please feel free to pop them into the chat. I will be monitoring the chat and keeping track of such things so that our panelists can focus on their conversation, and I will bring those questions up to them when it feels like there's a good time for that. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our panelists to do some brief self-introductions so you all know a little bit more about them. Martha, would you mind starting us off?
Sure. I'm Professor Martha Shalhoub, and I teach math. I'm a Collin professor. I used to teach at the Frisco campus, and I've been at Collin since '97.
Wonderful, thank you. Mindy, how about you?
So I'm Mindy Bailey, and I teach humanities, and I have been full-time since 2004, and I think I started as an adjunct in '97, maybe. So who knows? I don't do time. I always say if I ever get arrested, I'll do time. Until then, I don't do time. So I am Collin as well. And I also used to work at the Frisco campus.
All right, we can leave the math to Martha. So if we need her to do any counting, we'll ask her to do it.
Good job.
Tracy, how about you?
I am Tracy McKenzie, and I'm a professor of sociology at the Frisco campus. And I have been full-time since '99, and I believe I was an associate and adjunct starting in '96. So I've been here a while. Love the Frisco campus, hated my Frisco colleagues.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. And last but certainly not least, Michael.
Hey, I'm Michael Latham. I teach economics at the Plano campus. I've been full-time at Collins about 8 years, I believe, and I've been teaching in some form or fashion with some institution since 2006.
Wonderful. Thank you. So as you can tell, we have many years of experience on our panel today, so I know they're going to have all kinds of great ideas for us to steal from their discussion today. So to start us off, I kind of just wanted to ask you all to maybe share a little bit about, or may summarize whatever feels best to you. What's your overall teaching philosophy? If you had to kind of convey that in a nutshell, what would you say about that? And you can go in whatever order you want.
I'll go ahead.
Thanks, Martha.
First of all, I've been looking at the participant list, and I want to say that all of you are amazing professors. We just happen to be nominated. But I think I teach as a vocation, as a mission, a calling more than just a job. And so my teaching philosophy, I try to convey this idea that everybody can do math, that success is a learned habit, My students call me a math enthusiast because I am very passionate about conveying that the logic and common sense of the universal language of mathematics, right? I wanted them to have a sweet taste of that mathematical success. Yeah, I'll elaborate later. I'll let the others talk.
Okay, I'll go. So for me, I think that learning should be fun. And I am a playful person. And so I think passing that along is helpful for them when they know that that's my whole way of being in the world. But also I have turned my class into a game so that they can have autonomy and motivation and get a lot of feedback without too much high stakes stuff. And we play a lot of games and we have a lot of Socratic discussions, and I am loving Zoom teaching. I think it's the best of all worlds. So, okay, that's me.
Thanks, Mindy.
Mhm.
Well, I think learning should be meaningful. And I know it is, but I think that it's part of our job to help students realize that. And for me, sociology was very meaningful as a student. Just helped me understand, the life I was living and the society I was living in. And I know that for my students, my sociology class might be the only sociology class they ever have. So I want it to be meaningful and useful to them. And I agree with Martha, I'm not outstanding. I just work hard and try to do better. And I know everyone in that audience, we are going to have a lot to learn from you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy.
All right, I guess I'll jump into, yeah, I'm just going to echo probably what's already been said. Anything I've done, I've probably stolen from many of the people on this call. So I'll start with that. I totally agree. To me, it's all about just making learning fun. And I guess the way I approach it or try to make it fun for students is one, make it relevant and engage them and get them active with material to in some way apply it to their lives, personally, professionally, or just interests that they may have. And then also as part of that, trying to create an environment that allows them to develop relationships with one another, with myself, and be able to, just create a fun environment. If you have friends, you tend to enjoy it more. So I try to build that into the greater teaching strategies of the class.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is kind of tagging on to this last question. And you addressed this a little bit, but I'm wondering if some of you might expand on what are your main goals for students? Martha, you talked a little bit about, success being a learned habit and wanting, everybody to know that they can do math, which is so important. I'm wondering, what are some of your other primary goals, whether it's really discipline specific or whether, there's some like bigger picture lifelong learning goals that you hold fast to?
Yes, those bigger picture lifelong learning goals, because I find that regardless of the subject matter that you're teaching, right, we're going beyond that in our classes in ensuring that we're guiding our students to become those strong, engaged, independent learners, right? Because I think that is the ultimate goal of education. In math in particular, I try to build a strong, solid building block. We all have our building blocks that we provide our students depending on what course that we're teaching. But I find that with math, if you don't have a solid building block, you can limit your choices, your career choices. I had a student once, a calculus student, whose dream was to be to save the whales. That was her dream, save the whales. And she couldn't understand why she was in a calculus class if all she wanted to do was to save the whales. And she was told from a very young age that she was not good at math. But she tried and worked really hard. She had anxiety during exams, to the point that I had to let her collect herself because she was just visibly, anxious. And she did great. She ended up with an A in the course, went off to work with the whales. And later on, she emailed me and thanked me because she said that she now understands how important it was. She was measuring the BMI of the whales through satellite by calculating the area under the curve. So there you go. You never know the impact you're going to have.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, so our students may not realize it in the moment, but hopefully years later they do. And if we're lucky, they send you a letter about it and let you know. So that's awesome.
So I want to dovetail off of that, because I tell my students learning without application is the same as ignorance. So they don't always understand the relevance, or why they have to be burdened with this class. Like, I am not teaching people who are going to major in humanities, but I do think it's a class that everybody needs, because it expands your cultural horizons. It gives you context for how we got to now. It shows you how relationships developed, broke, redeveloped, all of it. So, and just the beauty of art and music and dance in people's lives, and to really make it personal. If it doesn't, if you don't care, it goes nowhere. So making them care, and also I think the chief takeaway from my class is I hope they learn the value of multiple perspectives. We all engage in the same curriculum, and so they're seeing this, and I do OER, so they've got videos and readings and timelines and everything, and then just to hear what other people have to say about it. We do a roundtable Zoom meeting once a month that's really chunked to have material, do space retrieval, pulling back into the foreground what they had almost forgotten, but also continuing to weave together those connections. And I think learning that other people read the same thing, saw the same thing, and got something entirely different out of it is such a valuable lesson, because in social media, I know they get a lot of the same feed all the time, and they think that that's the way it is. So that's me.
That is hugely important, kind of getting students out of that echo chamber, right? And learning the value of different perspectives. That it is hugely important in helping our students grow and, become critical thinkers and good citizens of the world, right?
Hopefully.
Right. Anyone else, Tracy or Michael?
Sure, I'll hop in. Yeah, again, similar to what's been said, I want them to see the interconnections between economics and all of the other disciplines that they study. So I really try to frame it that way from day one and get them to, through, ideally what I hope are engaging activities where they get to meet each other, but see how economics really can be applied to any field, any profession that they may be going into. And just constantly looking for ways to make the material as relevant as possible to where we can apply it to their personal lives, their professional lives, to other classes that they may be taking. So yeah, to me, it's really about viewing economics as a way of thinking and a way of analyzing different issues that can be applied to anything, really.
That relevance piece is so important, especially for everyone who is teaching, I guess what you might call non-majors, right? Students who have to take our classes, whether they want to or not, and helping them really see the value in all of the amazing things that they're learning in your classes beyond just that one classroom. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Relevance part is definitely central to me, but I'm a little distracted right now because right before this session start, about 8 minutes before we started, I had a knock on my office door, and it was a former student who Deborah St. John and I had in a learning community 20 years ago. And I opened the door, he goes, "I know you're not going to remember me." Well, I remembered him, and he was very special. And I had a quick 5-minute conversation. And normally I would have just skipped what I was supposed to be doing here. But I was on the panel, so I couldn't. So I just made arrangements to meet with him later on. But it just reminded me, really quick, I learned things that he got from our class that I didn't know that he got, what he wants to talk about, what his plans for the future are. So whatever my intent, sometimes I don't know. So I hope, I know we have to be purposeful, but I hope whatever students need, they're getting. And so I'm always looking for ways that I can allow that to happen, even if I don't know what's going to happen.
I love that perspective, that thinking, that there are things that our students are getting out of our classes that we may not even realize, and, staying attuned to those needs that our students have that we may not have expected. So how amazing that you got to have the student come back and talk to you. I'm glad you're able to make arrangements to visit with him further, since thank you for not backing out on the panel. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about maybe some more tangible and practical things here. What are some of your favorite things to do in the classroom with your students? Do you have any go-to teaching strategies that you can share with our attendees today? And whoever, Martha doesn't always have to be the one who goes first, just so you know. But I know your name, so I can call on you.
I'm doing something in my online classes. You've been teaching for so long face-to-face, and you're trying to transfer some of your strategies to online, but also now you have this online platform where you can be more creative. So I have something called Touch 3, where I touch 3 times on a given topic, because, especially on topics in particular that are going to be used throughout the course. But we learned it. Don't you remember? We learned it back in January. It's April. No, of course I don't remember, right? So we got to visit it more frequently. So Touch 3. And I do something called orchestra, where, sometimes in classes, in math classes, especially when in some of the courses, the curriculum seems to be picking topics from here and there and just mushing them together. Do orchestra, where, okay, you've played the flute, you've played your trombone, whatever. Now let's put it together, bring it together. So exercises that bring multiple pieces together so that they see how they're interconnected and relevant to the course. One last one is I haven't been able to fully implement it in online, but I loved it in the classroom, and it's kind of like speed dating, but I call it anchors and travelers. So you have your anchors that stay put, and the travelers that go to the other people once their time is up. And we just work on exercises that need a little bit more drilling. But that also talking about what Michael brought up, building that community, right? That classroom community, that social framework where they are getting to know each other and be a little less, be a bit more friendly environment.
Sounds so fun. And who knew that speed dating would have such an impact on higher education, right? You never know. What else? What are some other great strategies you guys like to use?
So I'm all about collaboration. So I'm constantly searching for different strategies, techniques to kind of encourage that collaboration amongst students. I like to bring in a lot of current events, and I like to keep the modality of those current events different. So I never want it to be the same. It might be an article one day, it might be a podcast one day, it might be a video for another assignment. But trying to hopefully search out those current events that they're going to, engage with, that they're going to find interesting and relevant, and then create opportunities for them to apply some of the economic models, to create discussions around it, and really trying to push them to get to that, analytical, evaluative level of thinking, and pushing one another to do so.
Any recent current events that y'all have been discussing in the classroom?
The world, the last few years, there's plenty of current events to bring into the classroom, especially, well, I think for any classroom, particularly for economics. Obviously, with what's going on in Ukraine, there's a lot of questions there as it relates to the economy, inflation. It's a very popular topic amongst students. It's not even something I necessarily bring to the classroom. Really, I've found this year, students are they're bringing current events to the classroom. It's very obvious what they're interested in. And then I try to go pull current events that might be a little bit more, provide a little more depth for understanding, to better understand the things that they've expressed interest in.
Yeah. Well, it's great when students are bringing the material to you. It doesn't get better than that. Thanks. Anyone else? Go-to strategies?
Tracy, you go this time. I'll be last.
I love what Michael said. I'll steal ideas from any of you. I'm always looking, and I that's where I get my best stuff, is from my colleagues, just talking to colleagues and finding out what's going on. So I like to do in the classroom anything that gets my students talking, and gets them engaged and gets them applying the concepts. And this semester I added a what I call digging deeper assignment. And it's just a real, it's an easy to grade assignment. We cover so many topics. So after one unit, I have them pick something that we covered that they want to know more about. And so they research the topic and come to class, and they do a quick 3 to 5 minute informal presentation. We just sit around rather than standing up in formal presentation. And they turn into me an outline, and we're excited, and they share what they learned, and we just do it really quick around the class. And I've enjoyed that. But just throwing out questions, saying, okay, turn to the person next to you, you got 5 minutes, figure out this problem, and then we share. Those are probably what I enjoy the most.
I love that digging deeper idea. Are there any interesting things that some of your students have discovered as a part of that exercise?
Actually, the class I'm doing it in is the human sexuality class. So yeah, it's been really, really interesting. And it's a small class. So I've been able to, I was thinking about using it in my intro social class, which is larger. And I'd have to decide if I wanted to, it would take 2 class days for everyone to do, or I might have to split it up, in 1 month, have half the class do it. I haven't figured that out yet, but yeah, like I said, it gives them a chance to something they want to know about, to discover more.
That's so fun. Thank you. All right, Mindy, you're up.
So I found out, the hard way, that students don't know how to learn. They've just been, like taught to the test by the time we get them, and original thought out the window. They'd rather Google it than think. And so I spend the first week, their first week's assignments are all about giving like the big picture overview of humanities, but also, why it's important, and teaching them, how their brain works. I have them read a chapter out of Make It Stick, which is, the Wrap It Up chapter, and that's 11 pages of gold for them. And they learn, and then I incorporate all of that into the structure of the class. So, there's retrieval practice, and then there's interleaving, and then there's, and so they see all of that play out in the classroom. They also learn about Bloom's taxonomy, and that, just memorizing is not knowing, that it takes a little more than that to get to understanding. And then I talk about how, it's always coached as linear, but it's not really, it's nonlinear. A lot of people would say understanding should be at the top. So, and I also teach them convergent and divergent thinking, how to brainstorm ideas, how to communicate productively and respectfully, and the creative process. That's probably my favorite thing to teach. And then I, just teach them the steps of the process and different people who are creatives and what they do. And then they go and do a discussion online, and they have to come up with a preface to their question, and then they have to give me divergent questions. And then they have to give me a synopsis of their favorite video that they saw. These are all TED Talks for this particular assignment. And then why it was their favorite, and the takeaways. I'm always about takeaways for things. But by having them generate divergent questions, instead of just giving them questions, it really trains them to think in a different way. And I get a lot of response from students saying, I can't believe my whole life has just been full of education with convergent thinking, like what's the right answer, and what an illusion that is, that, we're going to have problems in life where there's just one right answer, right? So I like to just stretch them that way, and give them an idea of, how it all works together. So I think knowing how it works helps them make sense of everything.
I love hearing you talk about teaching them, how to study, how to learn. So when you're doing these things like retrieval practice or interleaving, or, like what Martha talked about, the touch 3 activity, I'm curious, do you all explain to them why you're doing that so that you're kind of transparent about the process?
I do, and that is setting the stage. That's what this the first week, that's what it's called. That's what the module is, setting the stage. And I think if you don't have that foundational groundwork, coming into college can just be overwhelming, and they don't really know how to break up their studying. I tell them, every 25 minutes you should get up and do something that's totally mindless, but get up and move around. So I juggle or play with cats, or whatever it is, that I don't have to, it just takes the cognitive load off, and my brain can refresh, and I can come back with new eyes to it. And teaching them to kind of work different classes together and think about how this relates to that. And I think that creates some durable learning for them, where it actually does stick.
Cool. Thank you. So we've been talking about your tried and true strategies that you love. I'm wondering, are there new things that you're itching to try in the classroom but haven't had a chance to do it yet, or some things that you're testing right now that you think you like? And maybe the answer is no, and that's fine, but
I'll jump in. I'm always testing new stuff. Every semester, it's like starting over and tweaking, working with what you got, and always looking for new stuff. I really like to create assignments and modify them over time to where students are the ones creating the content, and they're creating the deliverable. And just to touch on 3, since I've noticed a few of my colleagues are on the call today. Lorena Rodriguez, who's on the call, and Mina Berry, who's also on the call. We're part of the OER grant team for economics, and we I'll just touch on a couple of different assignments that we worked together on. One, it really was Mina's brainchild. And it was analyzing your time, and it was essentially having students early in the semester look at how they spend the hours in a given week, and then getting them to think about what their goals are and how they might just be aware of how they're, how they're using their time and what changes might need to be made to achieve their, short as well as their longer term goals. Which is a really wonderful assignment that I've gotten a lot of great feedback on. And then we've also just piggyback on what was said a minute ago, we implemented learning frameworks as part of that course. So we are trying to get people to be aware of the learning process and the learning how to learn, and make it more explicit within the economic assignments that we're delivering for them. Again, something that could be applied to any other course that they may take in the future. And then lastly, this was from another colleague of mine that was also implemented in our OER course, and it was Clay Randall, who I stole this one from. And it was an Excel activity, and what he's having them do is go to the grocery store and look at the things they buy most often and measure the weight, identify the weights and the quantities and the prices. Again, people are aware of inflation at the moment. So they're doing that early in the semester, and then they're doing it later in the semester. And then building on that again with some of these learning frameworks questions to get them to look at how prices have changed, and specifically to their cost of living and how their cost of living may have changed. The difference, how should I say this? The change in their cost of living is not necessarily reflective of what we're seeing in these national, inflation numbers for the country and things like that. So, and then again, to getting them to take that and apply it to maybe some aspects of their personal, professional life.
Those sound fantastic. I love that, especially that last one you talked about, where they're really kind of engaging with inflation firsthand, seeing it in real life.
Yeah, again, they said I've gotten positive. Again, none of these were my original ideas. I want to give full credit to others. And really just, again, in all of those instances, they get to apply it to their own lives. And I think it just makes it more relevant and more applicable to them.
Yeah,
and I got
absolutely.
really positive feedback on all of those.
Awesome. That's so cool. What else? Any new things you guys have been trying in the classroom lately, or new things that you're looking forward to trying?
I'm trying something new this semester with regards to communication, because I am missing that touching base with my online students that I had with my face-to-face students. You get to talk before the class or after, you kind of know what their mood is, or if anything's amiss, you can sense. Sonia Petch, one of my colleagues in McKinney, she does the, she calls them reports, check-in reports. I call them sharing memos. How are things going in your life? Have you managed to make improvements in working ahead? Is there anything you're struggling with? In terms of your study habits, did you implement any changes? Have you reached out for help within the course? Because there's all these various help tools. Are you aware that they're there? Do you have any concerns, any suggestions? And she had warned us about the types of responses that we would get. And there's some really short ones. It's like, yeah, I just want to get this over with. And there's others that are like, they're just giving you their life history. And some that are actually very grateful that you're opening up the door for that open communication. I'm really struggling right now in my personal life. That's why I wasn't able to turn in the assignment on time, and then they just like tell you their whole life, going through a divorce, and then you can direct them and guide them to the resources that we have for help here as well. But yeah, that was different and new. And I think I'm going to keep it because I like having that communication aspect. It's a different type of feedback. Yeah.
Well, and think how far that's going towards building that rapport and that sense of community that you've been talking about, and that Michael talked about that. And I'm not surprised at all that there are students who are really grateful to have that opportunity to share some of those things with you. Yeah. That's really cool. Anything else?
So I'm playing with new programs to help me with things since I'm all online. So one thing is I used to just be on Zoom the whole time waiting for students to show up for office hours. And so I just set up a scheduling service so that they can tell me what they want to talk about. And you know, we all get kind of hung on the sky hook, and that could be more productive time. So I'm still here, I'm still available, but I'm not just like, you know, distracted looking at Zoom all the time to see if somebody's popped in. And then I've been working with Nearpod, which is a really interesting program that I think I'm going to use as an ancillary instead of a, you know, synchronous thing. And you can do, you know, you can embed videos, you can do polls, you could do quizzes, you could do all of it within the one framework. And it also is all accessibility. It's already done. And that, so for students who speak other languages, and English is not their native language, they can go with the immersion, they can just go and they can click on it, they can have it read to them in their, they can have it translated into their language, they can have it, you know, read out loud, all of it. It's just an amazing, and then they can also, you know, like have it highlight different parts of speech so that they can see, you know, so I think it really can help them with their skills in English. And the one, and I use Poll Everywhere sometimes with word clouds and all of that. And I usually do those. I do some when we're doing Zoom, but usually I like to keep that for just talking. And so I put one of those, I have a Poll Everywhere survey for each week's stuff so that they can just think about it in a different way. And Miro is what I'm trying to learn now. And that is kind of a whiteboard messaging, Post-its, and you can set it. It's just, it's a little over my head right now. I'm wrestling with it, watching webinar after webinar, tutorial after tutorial, but it looks like it's going to be great for breakout rooms and teamwork. So, and the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is TBL and team-based learning. And I am such a proponent of that. And it's really hard in an online environment. Because when I have my Zoom meetings, it's not synchronous. I mean, it's people from all of my different classes, and I just set up particular times that vary throughout the week. So it's once a day for a week, they'll have an opportunity. And so they're not in the same classes. So I, have, 7 different classes. So they'll be, in different sections and stuff. So it's really hard to do TBL stuff in online. So I'm wrestling with that. If anybody has any ideas, I want to hear them.
Mindy, I know you're always good for some new cool technology suggestions. So thank you.
Yeah, Miro looks like it's going to be my jam. It looks like it's going to be so great.
Yeah, it's I haven't used it, but I know of it. It seems pretty cool. And Mina shared something about it in the chat as well. So thanks, Mina. Tracy, how about you?
Yeah, I'm always looking for something to new. I think it keeps me fresh, right? If I'm trying new things, and I love Poll Everywhere, Kahoot. I use those. I'm doing this semester a visual sociology assignment. Well, they're doing 3 of them actually, and I'm loving grading it. It's really fun where they have to take a concept that we've covered during a certain time period and post a visual representation, a photo they've taken, and then just a short tweetable caption that explains what sociology concept they're illustrating, and they post it on Padlet. And that's been fun. And I just enjoy, like I said, seeing the visuals has been pretty cool. I did, when, you asked me to participate today, and the title is What Good Professors Do, or whatever it is. And I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to answer that. I need to ask the expert. So I polled my students and had them anonymously respond, the top 5 qualities of an outstanding professor. And one of the most common responses is that a professor who cares about the student. And they even use that term, Martha, well-being, who cares about my well-being, and is kind and polite to me. I'm like, geez, that's not much to ask. But I received an article today, a faculty focus article, and was talking just about that. Techniques for, spending a few minutes walking through the classroom and just saying, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? And the difference that makes in creating a safe, learning atmosphere. And so I think sometimes we work real hard trying to come up with the latest, greatest, assignment and idea. And maybe it can make all the difference just to let them know, because I know we do care about them, but really let them know that we're interested in their well-being.
That is so true. Caring for our students and letting our students know that we care about them is so valuable and goes a really long way. It seems so simple, but
yeah,
it's not necessarily. So thank you. So, we're kind of been talking about this the whole time, but I'm wondering, like, if you could give one great piece of advice to other teachers, what might that be? I know it's kind of a big question. And if it's easier, I can call on one of you to go first.
I'm going to go first because I don't want to come after Mindy. So my piece of advice, that's one thing that all 4 of us have been saying quite a bit, this idea that we like changing things, that we don't stagnate, that we keep trying to find new ways to convey and to keep it fresh, I believe is what one of you said. And that's how life is, isn't it? Like a kaleidoscope. There is change. Change is inevitable. And so I like focusing on a quote from Maya Angelou: do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better, right? And so we engage in all this professional development that the college supports. And so I try to always be changing, implementing new things. They mentioned, one of the best resources is our own colleagues. Attending those in-house professional development opportunities, including yours, Allison. You're so fabulous, and we're so blessed to have you, truly, because you can tell that you're very passionate about what you do, and all the resources are well researched. And again, thank you. We're blessed to have you. You mentioned that if we have any resource to advise others to follow it, and that's the Center for Teaching and Learning at Collin College. But find joy, keep it dynamic, and there's always room for growth.
Those are lovely. Thank you. And y'all, I didn't tell her to say any of that. I didn't pay her or anything. I promise.
I love you.
You're so nice. Thank you.
That's funny because I have the same thing on my list. I think I've seen every single webinar at least once, and all of those resource lists that you give me, I give away. I share those with everyone I know who teaches, high school, elementary school, it doesn't matter. Those are amazing resources. And I just have to say how beautiful your PowerPoints are. I love them. They're exactly what they should be.
Thank you.
So for me, my best advice would be to embrace creativity and to always try to keep it interactive dynamic. And I think that one of my major goals is just to always expand their horizons, to help them see their place in the world. And I think that you have to give them some breathing room to do that. And it takes time. I think the thing that is we always feel like is our nemesis is time. And I have just gotten comfortable with the fact that there's a lot of freedom and impossibility, right? It's just impossible to teach all of the humanities in one semester. So just to, go with the flow. And if they get really interested in something, slow it down, speed it up later, do what you have to do on the back end of that. But when they're really into something, I just always, I yield for that.
Yeah, good teaching is so much about being well organized, but also being flexible when you need to be, right?
Improv.
Yeah, improv. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Mindy. Other advice you want to
think,
share?
And I know why my colleagues are so outstanding, because everything they're saying are the things my students identified in terms of what's an outstanding professor. Being flexible, having passion. They said they can tell the difference between professors who love their job and love teaching and love their discipline, that excites them. And I guess my advice is to remember what it's like to be a student. I do that. I have to do that myself, to remember what it was like sitting out in that chair, trying to stay awake or trying to stay attentive, and to have some patience and adjust as I go to make it work and have fun.
Yes, fun. We like fun. Fun for us and fun for them, right? All right, Michael.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, I couldn't agree more with everything that's just been said. But I would probably go back to what Martha and Tracy had mentioned earlier, and it's to make sure students know that you care. And for me, that's the first day or the first assignment, depending on the modality. It's just getting to know them. It's not even about the subject. It's just taking time to get to know them and try to connect with them in some find an area of common interest, right? Something where you can connect and let them know that. And then touch points throughout the semester. Ideally every assignment, if they didn't turn it in, shoot an email. Hey, why didn't this get submitted? Especially after every summative assessments. And that's both, it could be positive feedback. Hey, this was amazing. It could be, hey, what's going on? You haven't submitted some assignments. But it's that constantly letting them know that you care and that you want them to be successful in the class, and making, to the best of your ability, making students aware that you are available in some form or fashion to support them and help them succeed. And I think that's just, to me, that's the main thing throughout the semester. And there's so many different ways to go about doing that.
So I want to add to that, because I always tell my students the hardest thing I ever teach is failure. And it is. And the people who are the most successful are the ones who have failed the most often. And they learn from it, they move on, they try it a different way. And so, there are so many people now, I think social media has made this a lot worse, who are just so scared to, drop the ball or look silly, or, what if somebody doesn't like me? All of that. And just to really help them embrace failure, because everybody's going to have failures in their life and nobody's good at everything. And so I tell them your best is always perfect. There is no perfect outside of that. And that if you're doing your best, you're going to get better. And I tell them, imagine like a baby just, crawling and trying to learn how to walk, pulling up, falling down, knocking their head, scrapes and bruises and everything. But they don't stop. They just keep, trying and trying and trying again. So some people it comes easier to than others, but there's always a trade-off. Everybody's good at something. So think about your strengths and play on them.
Important.
And I was thinking, Allison, about something you said earlier, and I started teaching in 1991. And so it's interesting for me to think back about how the students change over time. And this generation, they're very practical minded. And something that I find is important for them is they want to know why I'm asking them to do something. And that's something that you had brought up earlier that I wanted to mention, whether it's an assignment or a discussion. They don't want just for the heck of it, right? I mean, I make sure that I specifically say, this is the purpose of this assignment or this activity. And that seems to be good for them. They like that.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I am passionate about transparency in the classroom. You know, I always say, we know why we're doing something, but our students can't intuit that all the time. So they might see it as arbitrary or busy work. So doing like what you said is huge.
It seems so obvious to us when we're doing it.
Exactly.
It's like, how could they not get this? But they don't.
Yeah, but they don't.
And I think that just really consciously tying those goals to everything helps them to do that in their own lives as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to say rubrics and feedback.
Rubrics.
Rubrics. Yeah, rubrics and Canvas, man, that has taken so much time off of my grading. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, as we have just a few minutes left, I want to leave some time to open it up for Q&A, but just real quick, any great teaching resources that you would recommend to our group here today?
CTL.
Thank you.
So we have, at the library, we have ebooks of Make It Stick and Powerful Teaching. And I think those two are just treasures.
Mhm.
I
Anyone
mentioned
else?
faculty focus earlier. I love that. I get,
Mhm.
and I think it's facultyfocus.com or .org, but you
Mhm.
just sign up and I get, I don't know, 3 or 4 emails a week with some really great articles on teaching.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
And,
And they're always really practical too.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
like. Yeah, that's a great one.
We're currently reviewing a book in a small book math club, but it's small teachings.
James Lang, that's a good one.
And then the small teachings online also.
Mhm.
Great little things, that little tweaks that you can do in the classroom that don't take much time. And I read that there was a question about the check-in reports or sharing memos.
Yes.
I've just started doing that this semester, so it's my plan for this semester is to doing 3 times in the semester, because it does take quite a bit of time. I have 175 students to read all of their memos and reply meaningfully, right? You don't want to just, say, oh, thank you. You really want to show that you've read what they wrote and that you care.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a few minutes left here in our time. What other questions do you all have for our esteemed panelists today? Anything else you want to ask them while we have them here all together? No, nothing? Meanwhile, I am busily trying to put links to all of these resources in the chat to the best of my ability. I'm about to put a big ugly one for small teaching in there because it's from Amazon, but and Regina just mentioned Small Teaching Online, which is another great book by James Lang in collaboration with Flower Darby.
I have a question. I heard most of you mentioned that you also have a lot of experience with online teaching. And I think all of us have some experience, but certainly not a lot of experience like maybe you have. When you're thinking about online teaching versus in-class teaching, what would be the single, if you could say a single thing or two or three things that are most important to focus on in online teaching versus in classroom teaching that help to deliver your message in a better way when you're online? Anyone can answer that question.
It's a
do like
great
Allison.
question.
Anyone can answer, yeah.
Anybody?
I was having the hardest time with that personal aspect. You know, my students, I have my lessons, I have, you know, everything that I give my face-to-face students, but I didn't feel like they had me, you know, like with my personality and you know, goofiness or jokes or whatever, you know, we call them shalhoubisms to learn math, but injecting those little communication aspects, whether through announcements or like I'm doing now in the sharing memos, and even in the feedback from the speed grader, you know, when they turn in an assignment and you're writing a note. We talked about, you know, I don't know if we've actually mentioned it, but calling each student by its name, right? By his or her name. So to me, communication, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll hop in and just kind of piggyback off that. I totally agree. I think I really try to do the same thing regardless of modality. It's just the way it gets, I guess, delivered changes. So I think I find creating that interaction both between the faculty, between me and the students and amongst peers is a little bit more challenging in the online environment, but I think it's just a matter of getting creative with how that's done. I totally agree with like the announcements. I like to give a lot of video feedback in my online classes, and it's not necessarily me, like a picture of me. It'll be their assignment that they delivered, and I'm kind of walking just like if I was looking over their shoulder and kind of talking them through it, and using the mouse, and really just trying to. And I think just that personalized feedback. Again, I think it shows that you care and that you're, and I think that students seem to appreciate that you take the time to do things like that. So I think it's just a matter of getting creative in terms of how you go about creating that sense of communication and interaction.
So yeah, I use Zoom, and I can't imagine teaching online without having these, meetups where we, and I give them the agenda and questions to think about beforehand so that it's not just dead air, and they see how it all fits together. And then, just being really respectful of their time. So online students are different from face-to-face students sometimes. But I think the beauty of online teaching is that you get this really diverse pool of people. I have grandmothers who are there just because they wanted to learn this. I have, soldiers elsewhere in the world. I had somebody who was in flight school in France. You just have this whole really diverse group of people. And so trusting them to shine and share their lives and feel comfortable. I think that, that safety and sense of belonging is really important. So I always start Zoom meetings with some little exercise that gets them kind of warmed up and stretches their imagination a little bit, and makes them feel connected.
Thank you for that great question, Dana.
I have a
Thank you all.
question.
Thanks for the great answers.
Go ahead, Maria.
So I'm teaching an 8 a.m. class, and it's the first time I've taught one that's so early. Do you guys have any strategies to help people wake up? Like, even if sometimes they're interested, they'll just come in really tired because they got way less sleep than they should have the night before. I had one guy say, I got 5 hours of sleep. So if you guys have any strategies, that'd be great.
That's another really, really good question.
So I would never teach at 8 a.m. I got nothing to say at 8 a.m. My only word in my head is coffee. That's it. But yeah, I have taken 8 a.m. classes like long ago. And it was really important to get up and move around. So these little activities like team-based learning would be great for that. But even just having them, have Post-it notes and have them, go up and, respond to a question just in a real brief blurb on a Post-it note, go put it up on the board, and then have them go through and categorize them based on something, just something that is dynamic and gets them moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 8 a.m.'s tough. It is. It's just early. The earliest I've done is 7:15, and that was just painful. But I totally agree with Mindy. Anything to get them up and active. I use team-based learning myself. I find it very effective, particularly maybe in those early morning classes. But yeah, anything to get them up and moving is going to help.
I do love 8 a.m. classes. And I'm just by nature, just like moving around a lot in the classroom and calling people by name, okay, Jennifer, what is the answer to this? What, and so they know they have to be on their toes and, like doing active learning activities and just really keeping them awake, keep them on their toes, not just fully like lecturing. Break it up a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, 8 a.m. is tough. It is tough. And 7:15, good gravy. I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, y'all, I hate to say this. We are over our time. That was a really fast hour. So I think that speaks to all of the amazing ideas that you all were sharing with us. So thank you so much to Mindy and Michael and Martha and Tracy for being here today. Thanks to all of our participants for being here and for, just sharing your ideas with us. And I hope you all have a great day, and I hope to see you at some future CTL webinars. And I put as many links to as many of the resources that they mentioned and other things that I could in the chat. So if you save the chat, you can find those. I also recorded this. We'll post a link to it later, and I will also put a copy of the chat there. So if you want to access some of these resources later, you can. So thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks
you
you
so much.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you. All right. Thanks again, you guys.
Thank
That
you
was
for the
amazing.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
It was
Yeah.
fun. Thanks.
Y'all are awesome. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all. Have a good day.
You too.